here. Black Beauty Part 4. It was now 3 years since Black Beauty had come there to live, and he would have liked to have stayed forever. But sad changes were about to take place. The mistress was not well, and the doctor said she must go away to a warm country for 2 or 3 years. Everyone was sorry, for it meant the breakup of Birtwick Hall. Ginger and Black Beauty were sold to the squire's friend, the Earl of W. Merrylegs was given to the vicar, and Joe Green went along to take care of him. The children came out with their governess to say goodbye to their beloved Merrylegs. "Have you decided what to do, John?" the master asked. "Well, sir," said John, "I have made up my mind that if I could get a job with some good horse trainer, it would be the right thing for me to do." Many young animals are frightened and spoiled by wrong treatment, and that need not be if the right man took them in hand. I get on well with horses, and if I could help some of them to a fair start, I should feel as if I was doing some good. "Yes," said the master, "you understand horses, and they understand you. I'll do all I can to help you get such a job." Then came the sad last day at Birtwick Park. Black Beauty and Ginger drove the Gordons to the railroad station and heard the mistress saying, "Goodbye, John. God bless you." The next morning, John took Black Beauty and Ginger across the country, about 15 miles to Earlshall Park, where the Earl of W. lived. John patted the horses before he left them, and Black Beauty held his face close to John, for that was all he could do to say goodbye. The Earl's house was very fine, and there were many stables, but the horses were not as happy as they had been before. They had to wear tight reins that held their heads up too high, and when they pulled the carriage, and they did not feel that the people around them loved their horses as much as the Gordons did. When the Earl's family went for a long visit to London, the horses were left in the care of a man named Reuben Smith. Reuben understood horses and was good to them, but he had one great fault. He sometimes got drunk. Because of this, he had never been able to get a job as a head coachman. But still, he was so pleasant and useful that the Earl hoped he could be trusted to take care of the stables while the regular coachman was in London with the Earl's family. One day, Reuben rode Black Beauty to the White Lion Inn, where he told the hostler to feed the horses well. A nail was coming loose in one of Black Beauty's shoes. "Shall I fix that shoe?" asked the hostler. "No," said Reuben in a loud voice. "It will be all right till we get home. I'm going to see some of my friends, but I'll be back at 6 o'clock. Black Beauty thought it was very unlike Reuben not to see about the shoe, as he usually was very particular about loose nails. It was nearly 9 o'clock when Reuben came back, and he was drunk and in a very bad humor. Almost before they were out of town, he began using the whip, although Black Beauty was already going at a gallop. The moon had not yet risen, and it was very dark. The roads were stony, and Black Beauty's shoe kept getting looser and looser until it finally came off. If Reuben had been in his right senses, he would have known something was wrong, but he kept driving ahead at a gallop over sharp stones that cut into Black Beauty's poor foot that had no shoe. No horse could keep his footing when he was driven like that. Finally, Black Beauty stumbled and fell forward on his front knees. Reuben was thrown off, and he lay still on the ground. Black Beauty's knees and foot were hurting very much, but he stood quietly by the edge of the road, waiting for help to come. It was nearly midnight when Robert and Ned, two of the men from Earlshall Park, came up the road in the dog cart with Ginger pulling it. They were coming to see why Reuben had not reached home, and they were much surprised to find his body lying on the road. "Why, look," said Ned, seeing Black Beauty's cut knees. "The horse has been down and thrown him. Who would have thought the black horse would do that? Nobody thought he could fall." Then Robert tried to lead Black Beauty forward, but the horse took one step and almost fell again. Robert knelt down beside him. See here, he's hurt in the foot as well as the knees. His hoof is all cut to pieces. No wonder he fell, poor fellow. Reuben must have been out of his senses to think of riding a horse over these stones without a shoe. They put Reuben in the dog cart, and then Robert tied his handkerchief tightly around Black Beauty's sore foot and slowly led him home. Feeling sorry for the poor horse, Robert patted him and talked to him all the way. Back in the stable, he bathed and cleaned the wounds and made Black Beauty as comfortable as he could. The next day, the horse doctor came. I don't think the joints are hurt, he said. If they aren't, he'll be able to work, but of course he'll never have good-looking knees again. It took a long time for Black Beauty's wounds to heal, and then he was turned into the meadow for a month or two to rest. One day the Earl came to see him. What I feel worst about, the Earl was saying to the coachman, is that Squire Gordon thought his horses would have a good home with me, and now I'll have to sell this black one. It's a great pity, but I couldn't have knees like that in my stable. No, sir, said the coachman, but I know a man in Bath who has a livery stable. He takes good care of his horses, and he might want to buy this one. About a week after this, with only a goodbye whinny to Ginger, he was put on a train and sent to Bath. And now Black Beauty learned that a livery stable was a place where horses and carriage were kept, where anyone who wanted to ride could come and pay to have a horse for as long as he pleased. Always before, Black Beauty had been driven by people who knew how to drive, but now all kinds of people took him out. Some of them knew very little about horses and held the reins too tight or too loose, and others were always showing off by riding too fast. It was a hard time for Black Beauty, but he did his best. One day a man who was a good rider took a liking to him and decided to buy him. So Black Beauty had another master, Mr. Barry, a businessman. He hired a stable a short distance from his home and paid a man named Filcher to look after the horse. Filcher took good care of Black Beauty, except for one thing. He didn't give him enough to eat. Black Beauty heard the master order the best of food for him, but where was it going? Black Beauty began to grow thin. Mr. Barry rode him out to the country one day to see a friend of his who was a farmer. The farmer looked closely at Black Beauty. What do you feed your horse? Asked the farmer. Hay, beans, oats, and corn, said Mr. Barry. Well, you had better see who's eating your oats and corn, said the farmer, for I don't think your horse is getting them. And soon Mr. Barry found out that Filcher was stealing the food and taking it home. He found another groom to take care of Black Beauty, but this man did not keep the stable clean, and Black Beauty's feet became tender and sore from standing in dirty, wet straw. Mr. Barry was so disgusted by the grooms' neglect of their work that he decided to sell his horse, and so Black Beauty was taken to a horse fair to be sold, where he saw young horses just out of the country, shaggy little Welsh ponies, no higher than his old friend Merrylegs, hundreds of cart horses, some like himself who had had some accidents, some splendid animals who looked fit for anything, and some poor old horses with their ribs showing. It made Black Beauty sad to see these last ones. There was a great deal of bargaining going on, and many people came to look at Black Beauty. First, they would pull his mouth open, and then look at his eyes, and then feel his legs and skin, then try his paces. But what a difference there was the way things were done. Some did them in a rough, off-handed way, while others would pass their hands gently over his body, with a friendly pat now and then. There was one man Black Beauty liked right away. He kept hoping this man would buy him. He was rather a small man, but well-made and quick in his motions. His gray eyes were kind and cheerful, and he had a clean, fresh smell about him. Black Beauty could tell by the way he handled him that he was used to horses. The man offered $100 for Black Beauty, but the salesman said that was not enough. As the little man walked away, Black Beauty looked after him sadly. Then a hard-faced man came along and he offered him $100. Also, Black Beauty did not like this man and hoped he would not get him for a master. In the midst of the bargaining, the little gray-eyed man came back. Black Beauty reached out his head towards him, and the man patted it. "Well, old chap," he said, "I think we suit each other." Then he spoke to the man in charge. "I'll give you 110 for him." "Say 120 and you can have him." 115, said the little man, and Black Beauty's heart beat for joy when the salesman said, "All right." The new master was Jerry Barker. After a few good feeds of oats, Black Beauty was on his way to London with Jerry on his back. When he reached the great city, the gas lamps were already lighted. After going through miles of streets, Jerry guided his horse into a narrow alleyway and pulled up in front of one of the houses. He whistled, and the door of the house flew open. Out ran a pretty young woman, followed by a little girl and a boy. They all threw their arms around Jerry as he got off the horse. "Now then, Harry, my boy, open the gate and Mother will bring us the lantern," said Jerry. The next minute they were all standing around Black Beauty in a small stable yard. "Is he gentle, Father?" asked the little girl. "Yes, Dolly, as gentle as your kitten. Come and pat him." Dolly's little hand reached out to pat Black Beauty's shoulder. How good it felt. Then he was led into a clean and comfortable stable and given plenty of dry straw. After a good supper, he lay down to sleep, feeling that he was going to be happy again. Jerry Barker, the new master, was a cab driver. His wife Polly was a plump little woman with smooth dark hair, dark eyes, and a smiling mouth. Harry was nearly 12, tall and good-natured, and 8-year-old Dolly was just like her mother. The morning after Black Beauty went to live with the Barkers, Polly and Dolly came out to the yard to make friends. Harry had been there since early morning, helping his father to groom the new horse, and he had already said Black Beauty was a regular brick. Polly brought an apple, and Dolly had a piece of bread. It was a great treat for Black Beauty to be petted again and talked to in gentle voices, and he let them see as well as he could that he wanted to be friendly. And we'll do the rest of the book next time. That was part 4. Bye. Love you. Grandma.